Hello, today on the McDonald's Sessions, I am with David Mitchell, and we're going to talk about his, how he started in running, the running that he's done, and then anything else that we have. And he's trying to talk me into like 10 races so far, so hopefully we can avoid that. But we're going to have a very good conversation here. I'm here with David, and David, this is the first time we ever met.
Yeah, that's right.
I have watched some of his videos. He did a couple of races that I did, and we were just talking about kind of race strategy and stuff, and I thought, hey, I'm doing this video series, maybe you should be on it and talk about your experience and could learn more about you, and I can definitely always learn from another runner, and hopefully people watching can do the same thing. So let's get started with your background. So when you were in high school, were you a runner then? Did you run track? Did you do any other sports? How did you get started?
Okay, I can get into that. Let's start. Thanks for having me on the show here, and it's a pleasure to be here with local running legend.
I don't know about that.
I don't. Well, you might not be reaching the podium and getting the first, but you've got to have the record for most race completions in the KC metro area, because I don't know anybody who's completed as many races as you have, or from the watching your videos at least. It seems like you're really putting it down, doing races every weekend. So impressive stuff.
All you got to do is pay the money to just finish.
But yeah, I got into running when I was 13, so freshman year in high school. So that was about 25 years ago, and I've been running consistently since then. So I got into it then because my parents had this thing where they're like, well, you gotta take a sport, like you're gonna have to play a sport. And I grew up in the DC area, and so my high school had several thousand people in it, so you had no chance of making like the football team or basketball team or anything like that. And most of the guys who were in my grade level who played varsity, a lot of them ended up going pro. So that's like the caliber of athlete that we had. So I ended up running cross country. I didn't know anything about running or cross country or anything, but I looked at the sports list and I was like, well, I was the same size then as I am now, and I'm like 5'8", 135. So I'm not playing any contact sports or anything.
Could play soccer, maybe.
Crush. Yeah, maybe. So I went out for cross country, and so that's kind of how I got into running, and enjoyed it. We had about 50 people on the team who were in the men's, and I was probably ranked 48th. There was only two guys who were slower than me, and I was running, like, my average 5K time was like a 1940, so I was still running like a 6:30 pace, but like that's like, again, the caliber of athlete that we had at my school, that I was like on the very tail end. So I wasn't competing or anything like that, but I was just going out there trying to beat my own time.
Right.
So I did that, and then in the winter time, in the spring, I was still running track, but I was doing the 2-miler, and the best I ever did was averaging around like a 6-minute mile, and I never got below 6 minutes. So just kind of hung out around 6 minutes per mile, the 2-mile, 6.5 minutes per mile or so in the 5K. And then once I got out of high school, I just continued running, but not really competing or anything like that. My mom used to put on a race in November of each year because she was a runner as well, and so I would run that right around Thanksgiving time just for fun, the 5K.
Yep.
But other than that, didn't really do any races or anything. Just was just running for fun to stay in shape. Doing like 2 to 4 miles a day, maybe a 6-mile long run on the weekend, and then I ended up getting into marathon distances about like 8 years ago.
Okay.
And they kind of made the progression on up, and I can kind of talk about how that happened, but that's sort of how I got started
But you were smart, right, and never stopped. You ran
Right.
the whole time.
Right. I've been running consistently for 25 years or so.
Yeah.
About 5 days a week. And I've never really stopped except for I had an injury one time to my lower back that put me out for about 4 months. But other than that, it's been pretty consistent. So.
Nice. Okay, so you have been running this whole time, and you've gradually got up to the marathon distance. Do you want to talk about your first marathon, or did you run that by yourself, or how did that go?
Yeah. So the first one I did was actually here in this area.
Okay.
It was the Garmin Marathon.
Yep.
So that was the first one I did, and I came in. My time, it was the first marathon I had run, and I came in at 4 hours and 17 minutes, and then I ran it again after switching up my training program, and I got it down to 350.
Oh, nice.
Because the first one I was like, I'm just gonna go out and try to complete. Like I just want to see if I can finish the marathon, and I finished it. But I was being ultra conservative during the race for me, and I passed the finish line. And I was like, I still had some more in the tank, but I'd never run that distance before. Mm-hmm. So then I started trying to like push myself a little bit more, and then I got around the 350 range, and that's sort of where I've kind of plateaued.
Okay.
So that was the first marathon distance that I did. And that's a good race to do, your first one.
Yeah.
It's not too crazy.
Have you done, how many marathons do you think you've done?
I don't know, like 12 probably. Done Kansas City Marathon too, and then done the Garmin Marathon a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell either. Yeah. That's not that many.
Yeah, so I did that, and then I got into ultra distances actually. I didn't even know they existed.
Same.
And I was living in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I grew up in the DC area, and then I went to grad school at K-State. So I lived in Manhattan for a while. And then after that I got a job and moved down to Arizona. Okay. And then ended up moving back here like 3 years ago or so. And when I was down in Flagstaff, it's like the mecca for ultra runners.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff down there.
There's a ton of them, right? And I just happened to be at a local Walmart when I was buying something, and I was wearing some, I don't know, like a K-State shirt or something, and some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, are you from Kansas?" And I was like, "Oh no, I lived in Manhattan for a while." And he was like, "Well, yeah, I'm from Kansas, and I'm out here training right now, just trying to get in some runs at altitude. I'll come out here every summer and run around." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So I started talking to him about running, and he was like, "Yeah, these ultra runners out here." I was like, "What's that?" He's like these crazy guys who run like 50 to 100 miles. He's like, I see them out on the trails all the time when I'm training. It's like people run 50 to 100 miles. I didn't think he was serious. And he was like, "No, dude, they're out here." And so I went home and I started researching it on the computer. And I was like, wow, like people are actually doing this. And then I kind of planted the seed in my head. So like, okay, I want to build up to that. And that was before I moved here. So like when I did the marathon, that was kind of like my first dip into that world. And I was like, I want to see if I can get the marathon distance down first, and then gradually work my way up to a 50-miler. And so that's how it all started, just some random conversation at Walmart in Flagstaff.
I actually didn't know about ultramarathons either. I think I was looking at race videos one day, and I saw the REI video, like Y100. I think it's REI, or it might have been Billy Yang. That's one of those guys.
Oh yeah, Billy. Yeah.
That did those. There's like 3 or 4 of them that are like really good. And then I wanted to do it with my friend, and he never did it. So I was like, I'll just do it by myself. And it's like, I think I can do a 50K. So I did a 50K before I ever ran a marathon.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't know it existed either. And I mean, I lived where the Ottawa race is. I lived my whole life probably 20 miles from there. Yeah. And it's happening, I mean, and in Manhattan too. I mean, there's stuff happening right under my nose that I didn't even know about. It's so weird. But I mean, you're lucky, because if I would have known you then, and I knew you were doing marathon, I would have been like, you would have had that conversation way earlier. Yeah. So that's awesome. It's funny how you get into a race like that. Like, I mean, you don't even know that guy's name or anything, and he is responsible for all your problems.
No, it's true. It's true. And I'm glad you did, because I really enjoyed that distance. I really like the 50K distance is my favorite distance.
Yeah.
But I like to do 50 milers as well. I got about 7 of those that I've attempted. I've completed 6, so I've dropped out of Heartland. But I like to push myself in the 50 miler because I haven't nailed it yet. I haven't really figured it out. So I keep altering my training plan and trying to figure it out. So it's a challenge to me. I really don't enjoy those races, but I'm trying to I'm kind of obsessive sometimes, and I got to figure it out, right? But I've sort of figured out the 50K distance. The 50K distance for me is the one I'm most comfortable in. You know, I perform the best, and I can recover quickly from it. And I enjoy running on the trails, and I like how you can kind of go. It's all about you can go slow the fastest in some of these trail runs, and so it's not like you're just like fast off the gate, you know, like you would be in a marathon, road race marathon, and so
it's so different too.
Yeah.
Like, so do you like the rails to trails, or do you like trails more? Like, which one?
It depends, right? So if I'm doing a 50K, I kind of like the trails. 50 mile, I like to stick on like a rails to trails, something that's a little bit easier. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm comfortable enough to run on a technical trail for 50 miles because I'm still trying to figure out that distance.
Yeah.
And once I figure it out, then I think that I'll move to the upgrade to the trail 50 miler. But right now, I'm really most comfortable with trail 50Ks, and I prefer that over road race marathons or like rails and trails type 50 mile race.
How do you handle? So we see people all the time running on the trails like really fast, like through the rocks and this stuff. How do you do that? Do you just lay caution to the wind, or how do you get past that? Because that's a problem that I know a lot of my friends have and I have.
I had a ton of problems with that when I first started running on the trails. And actually, I'll tell you, like my first 50K was the Nighthawk.
Okay.
And I bombed out and stopped at the second loop.
Okay.
Because I had no idea what I was doing. I was coming from a road race marathon background, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just clock in more miles and I'm training, and I hadn't put any work on the trails. And then you go out there and it's like super technical, you know, and I was like, my ankles were all destroyed and I couldn't like run, and it was a complete and total disaster, but a really great learning experience. And what I found is just time on trails. Like the more time that you can put into actually training on the terrain, like the more your body adapts to it. And so I started doing, and I still do this today, even though during the week I'll be running around here in the city, I will be doing some treadmill work, but I try to do my long run every weekend on technical trails. So I'll go out to like Shawnee Mission Park. They've got mountain bike trails there that are pretty technical, fantastic training. The Psycho Lyco loop up in Wyandotte County.
Yeah.
You know, it's only like 20 minutes from here or so. Go up there, run that. So I'll switch it up. I'll also do, and I started working with a coach recently, with Jeff Browning, who's like ultra running legend. And I had a consultation with him a couple months ago for the first time, and I was like, trying to get better at this distance. You know, what do you recommend? And one of the points that he recommended was, he said, become an urban trail runner. Even though you can't get out to the trails till like the weekend, during the week, whenever you have the opportunity, run on grass.
Okay.
Because just doing that is going to help you with balance. It's going to help build muscle in the right places and build strength. And so I was like, man, that makes so much sense, because I'll run up to Luce Park up here, which is about 1.25 mile loop. It's a nice trail, you know, I got a pond there, and you just run around the side. But there's this huge grass field on the inside of it. So just move off the trail and run on the grass. And it's like, man, it's just so simple.
Yeah.
It's right there, right in front of my face. And so I started doing that as well. So I started doing that during the week, which, you know, slows up my times and all, because you're running on grass rather than flat. But I'm more focused on like time and rather than distance. And so I'm really starting to incorporate that into my training and to doing my long runs on the weekend on the trails. And then over time, you just start to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And so it's just about putting in time on the trails. Like, that's the only thing that got me to the point where I could actually run these things, rather than constantly looking at my feet, tripping. Like I would fall all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
how many times have you fallen? Like, have you fallen bad before?
Yeah, I have. When I was first running, I did this race down in Arkansas, and it was brutal, man. It's called the Razorback Running Revival 50K. Man, that was definitely the hardest race I've ever done because it's super, super technical. And it was in November, I think, and so the leaves are everywhere, you can't see anything. And so I was tripping all over the place, I was falling all the time. That was right when I first started getting into trail running, though, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So I took some really big falls when I first started. I would fall all the time, I'd trip all the time. Now it's just kind of second nature when I'm out there running them. And so it's very rare for me to fall. Like, I don't think I've fallen probably in the last 6 months or so. I've tripped maybe 2 or 3 times and I've caught myself. But when I first started getting into technical trail running, it was trip all the time. So it was the only thing that got me over that hump was just hitting the trails. Yeah. And then you just, over time, you become used to it.
Do you think when you do that, it forces you to pick up your feet more?
Yeah.
Because I think I know that's my problem is my feet start getting heavy and I just don't stop picking them up.
Yeah, they start dragging them. Yeah. And also another thing is I learned rather than like a road race approach with longer strides, with the trails it's just like, so it's more, you've taken more steps. Okay. And you're going slower. So it's just a totally different approach.
I'm not sure that I ever want to be a really good trail runner. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to ever be a good runner ever, but I kind of do like the ability to kind of close your eyes on a paved trail and just run. But I do like to dip my toes in the trails too. So I was kind of curious how, because I've even talked to people saying, like, I run a heritage park all the time. And they're like, just go in the grass instead of
do grass.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. So because there've been times where I was like, well, where do I break my trail shoes in? They're like, just go in the grass. This is when I start like being on the trails a lot more because you don't have to worry about like ticks and snakes and all that kind of stuff, or even the heat. Like, and you can see better. Yeah. Like, I don't like being on the trails where it's just leaves around you. That makes me, I don't know. I just don't like it as much. And I just like running in the cooler weather. So it's more fun.
I used to hate the trails, so after I bombed out of that first 50K, I was like, I'm never running a trail race ever again. I'm going back to road race marathons. Screw this. But then, kind of stubborn, so I had to come back and try to figure it out. And people have told me, they're like, over time, you'll start to enjoy running trails more. And I was like, that's not going to happen. But I found that it has happened because I find that my body recovers quickly from running on trails compared to pavement. Yeah. And if I go out and I do a 3-hour run on trails, I'll wake up the next morning and I'll feel great. If I go and do a 3-hour run on pavement, like my joints are hurting and I'm just not feeling that great. So I've kind of adapted to it, and my body's sort of like, it recovers better than
that's all right.
Yeah, than if I'm running on the pavement. So I kind of like it. Yeah. So
I've said lots of times that I was never going to run on the trails again. And I keep signing up for stuff. I think my next trail race is Cactus Roulette. I don't know if you ever did you do that last year?
I haven't done it, but I saw your video on it, so I know what it is.
Sydney and I are doing it again. It was really fun. We actually, I think I made like 2 videos because we got into Ultra Magazine or something because of it. Like Todd wrote up a write-up for it, so that was really neat, and it's fun.
Todd Chandler?
Yeah. I think we keep joking that we're just going to run the hill. I can't even think what it's called now. What's the hill there where you go up? Oh man, she's gonna kill me. Anyway, just the one section that's not really the trail.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be really mad that I can't think of it right now. But anyway, we keep joking we're gonna just run that because you spin a roulette wheel and it tells you where you're supposed to run. But last year we spun it a couple times and just stopped it where we wanted to run. But it's really fun because of that. I mean, and you're back at the aid station, every like 3 miles. It's nice.
That's nice. Yeah, that's not too.
Coming back with David, who also I have watched your videos enough to know they're like much faster than me, but it's probably because you have a better plan and are not racing every single day. Which, again, it's racy because, I don't know, if you ever see my results, I'm definitely always in the back. So when you were saying in your high school that you were in the, like, 2 people behind you, I definitely can relate to that because I mean, even I ran the Longview half, and for me, I had like a good time. It was under 2:30, and there's 2 people behind me in my age group. I was like, this is terrible. I mean, I've run way slower than that, and it was just bad. So when you run these, especially 50K and 50 mile, or even marathon, or in your training, how do you? I don't want to say motivated because I don't really think motivation is real. You have to get motivated to start, and then you have to, you just kind of have to do it after that. But what kind of mantras do you tell yourself, or how do you stay moving forward?
All right, so I usually do 4 races a year, and sometimes it's 5, but that's usually what it is. And I spread them out, so they're usually every 3 months.
Okay.
So I'm always kind of building up, have the race, recover, and then get back in the groove of things, build up, and go from there. So it's just part of my routine, you know, and I just do it year round. So that's just sort of my approach. So I'm not running every weekend.
It's probably why you can go a lot faster too.
Yeah. So yeah, I really focus on recovery. That's a big piece of it, and I try to switch it up so it's like 50K, and then my next race is 50 mile, and then 50K and 50 mile. So that way I'm not just doing big distance on top of big distance. And then I'll sprinkle in like a marathon or something, usually as a training run as I'm building up to a race, not really a race, So that's what I did with the marathon this last time. So I kind of spread it out, and so that kind of keeps me going, somewhat motivated, I guess, because I've always got something to look forward to. I know I'm going to have a recovery period, and since I've been running for so long, it's just part of my routine.
Okay.
So I just, every day when I get off of work, I go and run.
So you run in the evenings?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, my next question is going to be tomorrow, if you have your long run, and your alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning, like how do you get yourself out of bed?
I don't do it in the morning. No, I'll never. And I mean, that's for a few reasons. It may go back to my high school days because we would always practice after school.
Yeah.
So, it was always kind of in the late afternoon. I do not like running in the morning. Obviously, you got to do it when you're doing the race.
Yeah.
But because I run such long distances, I like to have some fuel in my system, and I find that running in the afternoons or evenings, you've got time to eat during the day to fully digest to go out there. So if I wake up first thing in the morning, I've got to eat like 2 to 3 hours before I run. So I'm not going to be able to get up. I can't get up at like 5:30 and go out and run at 6 without anything in my system and clock in like a 20-mile long run, because then I become lightheaded and dizzy, and it just doesn't work for me. So when I do races, I have to get up really early and usually eat at least 3 hours before the race. So no, I don't do the morning runs. Plus, I just don't feel like getting up and running that early in the morning.
Do you find it difficult to, go through everything that you have to do at work and everything, and then going to run, or do you look forward to that run?
No, I look forward to it.
Okay.
Like every single day, I look forward to it. Like it's one of the things, and I'm like, yeah. Like something goes off in your mind after you run for so long. That just becomes part of you, and rather than like dreading the run. Now, I will dread long runs on the weekend because sometimes I just don't feel like running for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like just don't want to do it. So that's a little bit different. But during the week, I usually run for an hour to an hour and a half every day once I get off work. And I'm working from home, so I'm staring at that computer all day, on calls, doing all sorts of stuff, and my eyes are just hurting. So it feels good to just shut all that off, go outside, and run, and kind of get away from it all. For me, it's just how I decompress at the end of the day. So.
We've talked a little bit about how I guess I don't even know if we talked about it in the video or not, but we don't really like heat. Or is there any other weather that would deter your run? I mean, will you run out in the rain and snow and cold? And
yeah, I'll run in the rain as long as it's not like a thunderstorm, because I don't want to get struck by lightning or anything. But if it's sprinkling, whatever. I mean, if it's pouring, then just get on the treadmill. Cold weather doesn't bother me, but I will not run if it's icy, because I just don't want to run the risk of slipping and then injuring myself. So.
I can't remember the last time I've run on a treadmill. Like I refuse. Like I put those Yak tracks on ice. I mean, I'm going out to run outside. I just can't do the treadmill. It's too, like, I understand why you want to run trails too, because I mean, I know that is so much better scenery than running the roads, especially if you're running your same thing every time. But I just can't do the treadmill. So
I like the treadmill. You know, I like to incorporate it in my training, and I've found that it's really helped me with recovery too. Because when you're out there constantly pounding the pavement, you know, it does a number on your body. So I found that working in a few treadmill runs during the week has really helped me recover and actually perform better on race day. So it's something that I've really kind of built into my training regimen.
That's good.
It also helps me get in a lot of good vertical gain, especially living out here where it's relatively flat. So I can do that. And another thing it helps with is heart rate training, because you can do a really good recovery run at low heart rate on a treadmill where you can control all the variables rather than outside. So for all those reasons, I definitely incorporate treadmill into my training.
So that's kind of the difference between having a good plan and just winging it.
Well, I used to kind of wing it. I used to just go run miles, right?
Yeah.
And I've really started in the last 4 months or so, started actually implementing a training plan. So I'm taking a completely different approach right now than what I used to do, which is just go run miles. And I'm really focused on effort levels and intensity and actually trying to. And that's from having conversations with Jeff Browning, because when I first started talking to him, I was like, look, man, all I've done is just gone out and run miles. You know, like, because it's ultra. So an ultra is like, well, I'm not going to really be doing speed work or anything like that, because I'm not going to be running fast. It's all about who can go slow the fastest, right? So I'm just going to do miles, and build up that leg strength. And he's got me focused more on effort and time rather than just miles. And so I've got a good like quality day that I'm doing now, my long run, and a few other things. So I'm still doing the same routine, right? I'm still running at the same time, but the types of runs that I'm doing are a little bit different.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to put together a plan that works. So I got this training log, this Excel file that goes back to 2019, every single day, all the miles, my average heart rate, and everything like that. So I've been going back and seeing how well I've performed at different races and trying to pull things out from there and put together like a solid training plan. And then after each race, going back and writing like what works, what didn't work. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah.
So I've been like you in the past, where I'm just like, I'm just gonna go run. Yeah. You know, I do the taper. You know, I'll build up. You know, so there's some structure there, but I'm really trying to dial it in a little bit more. So.
Yeah, I probably need to do that someday, but I still think I need just a better base. Still, I mean, like you've been running this whole time. Like I probably am ready for that, but I'm not mentally like. I don't know. I probably will have to get a coach eventually.
Have you done a VO2 max test?
No.
Okay. I just got one done for the first time like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And because I'm like going all in on this new training approach, right? And so I got that done, and so I've been using that to really drive my training and what my overall effort levels are. Because I'm like really focused on heart rate right now.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting, so we can get in a conversation about that too if you want to get into that, because it's pretty fascinating, because you can see like where your ventilatory threshold is, where you're looking at the amount of oxygen you're bringing in versus the CO2 you're putting out, and your ventilatory threshold is when that like ends up 1-to-1, and for me that happens right around like 136 BPM. Right?
Okay.
And then you can figure out your lactate threshold, because you're taking your blood during this as well, and you can see like what that. Yeah, and so it's really quite fascinating, because you can dial in what your actual zones are, and then you can program that to your Garmin watch. So I kind of know like what my easy zones are versus like my threshold, and I've been using that to focus on my training, which has been pretty helpful, because I used to just go out there and run right around like 142 BPM, and because that's just kind of like where I'm comfortable. I'm not pushing it too hard, but I'm pushing it a bit. But I've been finding now like doing easy runs below 136. It's really been helping me with like recovery, and then on my hard days going hard. So rather than like kind of cruising in that gray zone at the same effort every day, and instead just focusing on miles, I'm really focused on keeping my easy days easy and my hard days hard. and taking that approach. So we'll see when I do my next race if it pays off. But yeah, no, I've kind of gone all in on the numbers. So.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
But, so speaking of,
it's fun though. You know. Like I enjoy it because it's kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like a data nerd anyways. So
yeah.
Focusing on all these numbers is kind of fun. But to go back to your original question, we talk about like kind of what gets you through the races on the back end and things like that. I mean, or like even why you run these races. For me, it's just I'm just like hardwired to constantly work towards something. Like I just have to be working towards something.
Yeah.
If not, then I get like anxious and depressed. Just to be honest with you. So I always have to set goals. You know, whether they be work related, things that I'm working on, in the academic world, or anything. I gotta be like writing new articles, trying to publish things, working towards something. I've gotta constantly have goals. I can't just flow through life. So I found that running has really been an outlet for that, and keep pushing yourself beyond your limit and trying to achieve things. And when you can't, trying to figure them out. I find that it helps keep me like mentally and physically stimulated. And so that's like my big why for like why I end up running these races. And what gets you through on the back end, I don't know. You know, I think it's just mental toughness that's built up through going through this so many times. You know, like each time you do it, you figure out a little bit more. You understand it a little bit better. And so you alter your training and everything, and then you know once you complete one, you know that you completed it. Like you know you've done it. So that's in the back of your mind always. And so it's just trying to push yourself. And I really like pushing myself up to the limit. And that's one of the reasons why I do like doing the 50-mile distance, even though I haven't quite figured it out yet. It's because I hit the wall pretty hard around mile 40. And those last 10 are just brutal. Right? I can go out there and do a 50K. I can do a marathon. But the 50 mile, hit the wall. And it like getting through and pushing yourself to the end is something that is just really challenging, but very rewarding at the same time.
Right.
Like it's very difficult to describe the rewarding feeling that you have once you complete something like that, when you really push yourself beyond the limit, when you want to quit but you're not. So it's constantly kind of chasing that feeling.
Right.
And so that's sort of why I do the races.
So once you figure out the 50 mile, then what? I mean, I kind of feel like I have an idea what it could be.
Yeah, I'll probably go up to the next distance, or what I'll do is I'll start doing technical trail 50 miles until I figure that out. Because when I was talking to Jeff Browning, when he was doing some coaching consultations with me, I remember asking him, like, how do you know when it's the right time to move up to the next distance? And he said, when you complete your 50-mile race and you feel great and you're like, I can keep going. And I'm definitely not there. It's like I hit mile 40 and it's like the wall. So I'm trying to figure it out. And so I'm switching up my training approach. So that's a big thing. I'm also really focused on nutrition. I think my nutrition overall has been pretty solid, but I think he was recommending getting in more sodium, because when I was telling him that I was hitting the wall right around like the 7.5 hour mark, but I don't hit the wall in the 50K marathon distance, he's saying one of the reasons why he thinks that's the case is my sodium intake, because I'm taking in like 260 milligrams of sodium per half liter. So you're looking at a little over 500 per liter, where it's really recommended that you get anywhere between 600 and 800. Some people lower than that, some people much higher, because it's all individualized. But I'm a little bit lower than like what the normal range would be, which is okay in like the marathon distance or the 50K distance, because you also have reserves, right? So you're going off your reserves, but you're going down, but you're also taking your salt tabs and you're going in. But once you're doing like a 50-mile distance, if I'm hitting the wall, even though I'm changing up my training plan at right around the same time every single time, probably depleted those sodium reserves and not getting enough in, being a little bit below what my intake would be. So altering that, so I'm getting that. So I've been doing it on my long runs, trying to figure out what the right amount for me is. And so incorporating that into my training, and then also doing some of this effort level training, and see if we can't figure this out.
Yeah.
And so if I can figure this out and I'm not slamming the wall every time I hit like right around mile 40, and I get this down after a few times, I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with it. Then I'll go to the trail 50 mile, real technical trail 50 mile race. And then once I get that down, I'll probably move up. But I don't see myself moving up anytime soon. I think it's going to be a few years.
I mean, I definitely can tell that you are like way more of a perfectionist than I would be. I'd be like, well, I did it a few times.
Yeah.
I didn't die. Time to go to the next thing.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
probably a mistake, but I just, I feel like I got to do the races while I can. I don't know. I feel like there's such a limited time. I don't know. I just have different philosophy. Yours is probably right. Anyway, so you said you have goals. So what are you training for right now? And this kind of dates it. So if you're watching this a while from now, this is November 2022. So what are your goals as of right now?
I'm going to do the Last Chance Ultra in Stockton, Missouri
Right.
in December.
This could come out after that even.
Yeah. So for this one, it's very rare for me to do the same event twice.
Okay.
I've done the Garmin Marathon like 3 times. That's the exception. But it's because like there's so many different races out there,
It's
and
true.
I wanted I'd rather go do different ones and just experiment with it. But I really like the Last Chance Ultra. It's relatively close. It's like 2 hours away.
Right.
They do a great job, and one of the reasons why I want to do it is because I got this new training plan that we've been talking about, and I want to see if it worked. I mean, it's so difficult to compare one race to another in the ultra world because all the courses are
Yep.
so different, right? So you might come in at like 11 and a half minutes or 11 hours, 30 minutes on a 50 miler, and another 50 miler, you might come in at like 9 hours and 30 minutes, but that 11:30 might be a better time,
Right.
Because it's just a way more challenging course, and so it's very difficult to really do a perfect one-to-one comparison. So since I did the Last Chance Ultra last year, I want to go back and do it again, so that way I have a good one-to-one comparison. Unless of course we get like 2 feet of snow or something like that, and I can really compare my times
Yeah.
and placement to see if I've actually improved or not. So that's another reason why I'm going to be doing that. So that would be that, and then I don't know what my spring race is going to be. But in June, I'm going to do the Black Hills 100 is the name of the race. I'm not going to be doing the 100-mile distance. I'm going to do the 50K distance. So
Okay.
50K, 50 mile, 100 mile. Very challenging technical course that's up there in the Black Hills, right around, I think it starts in Sturgis. So, yeah, so that's what I got. Last Chance Ultra, and then the Black Hills race, and then I'll figure out one in the spring and then one in the fall. I may do the Heartline 50 because I got to go back and got to complete it since I dropped out of that one a couple of years ago. So.
Yeah. I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all your experiences and your knowledge. I mean, I definitely seen your runs enough to know that you're pretty fast. Even if you weren't the fastest in high school, you're definitely above average in speed. I don't know. I mean, I don't ever look at like people's places. I don't know like where you were on the 50K, but I feel like you're, at least for me, you're very fast and very fast on the trails too. So it's good to hear your experience and then just kind of how you approach things. So thank you for sharing that. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we?
No, thanks for having me on here. I've been watching your videos for a while. How I got into watching Clint's videos is when I did the Kansas Rails to Trails race. I guess that was like two years ago, and I was just looking for a video overview. And I landed on your video because you had done that one before. I was like, oh, that's cool. That was really helpful. And then I started following your channel. So that's how I discovered your videos. And then I started making some videos just because a friend of mine wanted to know what running an ultra was like, so I just took the camera out there and videoed it. And then I found that going back and watching the videos was actually really helpful because, as you know, like it kind of all blurs together. So when you're out there with the camera, you can kind of say how you're feeling during different portions of the race. And I found going back and watching that was really helpful for modifying my approach in the future.
I have whole conversations and stuff with people that I don't remember having. It's not like I'm out of it or anything. It's just I'm like, I don't really remember this happening. It's really weird. So what's your, I follow you, but what's your YouTube channel?
Oh, it's just called David's Running Blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It doesn't, like you said, he doesn't do a ton of races, but they're all good ones. So I would definitely follow him. So Well, thank you. It was great to meet you, and yeah, hopefully you. Well, I'm thinking about doing that last chance ultra, but I got to check. I might have a kids basketball game or something that weekend, or I might have already signed up for it. But I definitely am interested in that, and you should try one of the ones in Osawatomie. I think you might like it. It'd be nice and easy for you. So
Right on, man. Sounds good.
okay, well, thank you. And that's all we have here from McDonald's for this week. He had coffee only, and I had a whole meal. Again, why he's so much faster and probably like doing a better job than me. I had a fish sandwich too, so sorry. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.